and just have a look at what we've got in store. As I mentioned to those of you that were here a little earlier, this is week 4 of the course. So if you've just signed up for week 4, this for like the first 4 weeks, this would be your last one. If you wish to continue and do the full course, which is 11 weeks, you need to sign up again, and that course will start from next week. Okay. Right, so what we're needing to do is have a look at the ILJ. So this is a slightly shorter version of the ILJ. I've just made it a little bit, I've reduced it just to make it a little bit more concise, and we also have a short course PowerPoint to do, which is basically just adding in evidence that's needed to show that we've achieved our learning outcomes. So I'll not do that right now. I'll do that a little bit later when a few more people have got the chance to get here, and then we can just do that collectively. But this session is being recorded. I hope that's okay with everybody. You know, we've done it many times before, just for the benefit of people that can't make it tonight. If you haven't managed to upload the learner tutor form, that is due now, so if you could please upload that, that would be good. We're going to start off with our critique of work. Just have a look at what we did last week. Can anybody remember anything from last week? Did you learn anything last week? I'm going to start with James.
I don't believe I did, but my mind's just gone blank. I can't do anything.
Don't worry, James, don't worry. I'll pick on you again later.
I'm sure you will.
Lindsay, can you remember anything from last week?
We selected a subject, so yeah. we selected the bird, wasn't it? And yes. Put in a different subject in the background. Put in a different background. What else did we do? Can't remember much more.
Maybe Heather can jump in and help out. Any words of inspiration here, Heather? I'll give you a hint. Lighting.
There was something about directional light.
Yes.
And the radial gradient, I think.
Yes, that's right.
But I'm not quite sure what we did last week and what we did the weeks before. It's all slightly, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of content. Jonathan, anything to add?
Not really. I found there isn't, depending on how you use it. I actually use the directional light, or maybe the radial light. They're both rather similar, but I used one of the photographs I uploaded was actually to remove light.
Okay.
Which it was distracting on the photograph. It was lighting up people's legs and ankles, so I used the filter to remove light instead of adding light.
Okay, so that's really taking it a step further and just exploring what we can actually do with lighting. Because when we were looking at some of the subject matter last week, a lot of the images looked a bit flat, whereas as soon as you introduce the directional light, it really makes the image pop and just brings it to life. So, and then of course we can work inside the filter, or we can work outside the filter, like we did when we worked with the lighting image, where we were switching on the light and then darkening down the background. So we were looking at lighting and how we can add it to just cause interest in an image and impact. We were looking at isolating a subject, as has been mentioned, improving an image, and also working with HDR, a little bit of practice with that just to refine technique. So we'll have a look at some of the work you've uploaded shortly. Then in our projects, we're going to look at the vexed question of removing a chain link fence. So I'm sure everybody's been there before. You happen to see something, perhaps you're in a zoo or safari park, anywhere like that, and they've got a fence between you and the little critter. You take the photo and then you think, if only the fence wasn't there. So we're just going to look at a technique to use where we can more or less get rid of the fence. There is a little bit of work to do with it though, so and a little bit of preparation for Photoshop to do for that. We're going to have a look at different types of masking within an image and how we can use masking effectively in Lightroom. And then we'll finish off with another bit of practice selecting hair and introducing somebody into a background. Okay, so a few things for us to get our heads round this evening. So James, last week your surfer in a teacup was missing. Something had gone wrong, hadn't it, with the upload?
Yes, I don't know what had gone wrong, because I thought I'd uploaded everything, but obviously I had it, but I just hadn't uploaded it, sorry.
No problem. So the surfer has arrived, it's uploaded in fine style, so good work here, a really nice cutout, we can see the ocean, the surfer, all of the elements have been very well done. So worth waiting for, James, good work.
Thank you very much.
So now we'll jump in and take a look at our directional light. Okay, so first up we have Lindsay's image. Could I ask Heather to critique, please?
Yeah, it looks like it's most of the sky, possibly coming from where the main source of the sun is on the existing, the before photograph. Mm-hmm. But the whole photo has been lit up, which has made it a lot brighter and a lot less flat. But you can see along the wall that there are some bits that have been highlighted as well, which is nice. It feels like that's coming from the sun. And some of the fields are a bit lighter as well. So I'm not sure if you did quite a few touch-ups, but it looks like that. Possibly you brought the radio filter out at different places, but it's definitely a big improvement.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Thank you for that, Heather. Some very perceptive comments. Anything to tell us, Lindsay, about your technique or what you were doing here?
Heather was absolutely right. I applied it in different areas. I applied it around the tree and the fields just underneath the tree, and then on the wall as it comes towards us. I found it actually quite difficult to find a photograph that I thought it would work on initially, and then when I did this one, I thought, well, no, it definitely does bring out some of the light within it, so it was worth it. Yeah, because it's quite flat initially, isn't it?
Yeah, it is quite flat, but there again, it's, just reminiscent of a RAW file that comes straight from the camera. That's basically what you expect to see. Is that what it actually is, without processing of any kind, or
yeah.
It is, yeah.
No, that is. Other than a bit of cropping, that's exactly what it was.
Okay.
And then, and then sort of a bit of raw work, but the lightning, the radial filter applied around the tree and applied sort of down at the bottom corner of the wall, just to lighten it slightly more.
It's been done very selectively, and it's really well done, so it doesn't look as if you've crossed the line. It's just done to bring out what's already there in the image, just to enhance it and make it look really good. So excellent work with that application, Lindsay. You've done a great job. Well done. Next up we have Jonathan. Could I ask James to critique, please?
Yes, excuse me. It certainly brought out the bride and groom, especially on her dress and on her shoulder. And it's worked very well there. Yes.
So we've had a nice selective crop as well. It's given the image more impact. Anything to tell us, Jonathan?
No, not really. It was just applied as an oval in the way you suggested, and it sort of seemed to improve it rather than just trying to lift the whole photograph. I think it was, and it sort of was the direction that the sun was coming from. It was just being shaded by the tree.
Yeah. And that's the secret to all of these techniques. It's working with the light to actually make it appear natural, and convincing. So much more impact than the earlier version. Did anybody, as a matter of interest, see Beyonce in a similar sort of stance with a wedding dress on? And somebody had photoshopped a pizza onto the base of the dress. So standing like this beautiful bride, and then this pizza is on the base of the dress. Did anybody see that?
No.
No. Fortunately not. So great work.
The most surprising thing about that bride was there was actually a pocket in the dress and she had her phone in it.
Well, that's what I call a very sensible bride. You never know when you might need to use your phone. A sign of the times, eh? Thank you for that, Jonathan. Great work. Next up we have Heather. Can I ask Jonathan to critique, please?
It's first thing I really notice is it's cropped, and that yes, the filter has been applied, but the drinks, particularly the larger glass, is really well lit, and the base of the dye opposite has got more light on it, so it's applied as a radial filter, as you suggested. In some ways, I think maybe it's cropped in a little bit too much. I quite like seeing a little bit of the field, but I can understand trying to remove the arm. The lady's arm is distracting, so it's an improvement on the original photo.
Thank you, Jonathan. The only thing I would say is, obviously, we've got the building is sort of leaning over here. I think would have been inclined to try and straighten up the verticals a little bit. The filter, so we've got a filter over this way, Heather, is that right, coming in from the right?
Yeah, when I'm looking at that, it's not that good. But I was just looking for something where there already was some obvious light source. And to be honest, I was trawling through for ages and I ended up just plumping for this one, which wasn't even taken with my camera, it was actually just my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought the point of the picture really was the celebration, which is why I cut the field out. But yeah, you're right, I hadn't particularly noticed about the building. I wanted the emphasis just to be on the drinks, the sort of celebratory drinks, and yeah, my son.
Yes.
So I tried to take out as much as possible, but then I wanted to keep the hand in as well.
Yes, yeah.
so yeah, that's how it evolved. But I was really just looking for something that had the light source already.
Yeah, and that is a big help. But the hands work really well. I love the way that you've just, included the hands, the glasses, there's lighting on there, the emphasis is really good. The only thing is, I think your son's in a bit of haze with that filter. It's maybe, just pulled down a little bit. Obviously, he's the subject if the filter was just been lifted up a little bit, so it just kind of kissed the top of his head. Sure. That would just be a suggestion to improve it further, if you wanted to make more of it. And, it's perfectly fine to use iPhone photos because often, as we'll see later, there's information in where you have got a mobile phone that has more than one lens. There's certain information that's held in those files that ordinary cameras, DSLRs, just don't record. And we'll find out more about that later. So, yeah, there's definitely a place for the mobile phone in all of this. Okay.
Yeah, I did feel I was sort of overdoing it a bit with the filter because it was quite obvious already in the original, but I just wanted to make it look like I'd actually done something. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, that's the case with a lot of these projects. Sometimes, there is a little bit of overemphasis just to prove that you've used a certain effect. Exactly. And then if you were using it, on an image that maybe you wanted to print or put into a competition, you would sort of pull back a little bit. So, you know, that's
Sure.
fair comment. Well done.
Thanks.
And this one, Heather, what can you tell us about this one?
I just put that one in as well, which was just taken with a new lens that I just bought, and I just thought I would try and use the gradient to try and make out that the sun was shining out from a particular angle, and I think it made the photograph a bit more interesting.
Yeah, because the one on the left, it does look quite dark. So it just sort of gives the impression it's taken maybe in shadow, where the daisies were somewhere that's that little bit darker. And then here we've just got that little bit of light that's coming through, and it just really makes it pop, makes more of a picture of the flower. So was this one taken with your camera?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it will be, because he said about the lens, but so much detail in the centre, and so it's worked really well there. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
So Anne can't be with us this evening, so we'll just do a quick critique of Anne's image. So I'm back to you. Oh, let me just check. Has anybody new joined us? Oh, Graham is here. Emma is here. Okay. So just so everybody gets a turn. Graham, good evening, sir. Would you care to critique this image, please?
Yeah, certainly. Hi, Jim. Yeah, I like the way she's obviously cropped it in to bring out more detail on her husband, and then looked like she's put the radial filter coming in from the right down on his head a little bit, I think, but not too much, so it hasn't blown it out that much. And, yeah, I think the way she's cropped it in, it works quite well.
Yeah, and she's worked with the ambient light, so we can see, you know, where the shadows are, everything's in keeping. So we're looking at, you know, shadows on the ground, the shadows on the tree trunks, just to sort of get a feeling for where the light source is, how it's falling on the subject. And she's got a nice little bit of framing going on there. If only he just moved a little bit to the side, away from this tree, that would be the only thing. And it's always something to be aware of, because wherever you've got trees, you can end up with subjects with antlers. And so it's always it's always something to be very careful of. Watch the background.
Yeah.
But great work there. Thank you, Graham. Next up we have James. Emma, would you care to critique, please?
Yes. Also, my internet's a bit dodgy, so I don't know if you can hear me.
Because
I can't see this like in full resolution. It's just a bit blurry. But from what I can see, it looks like there's been a filter applied on the right hand side, which has brought a bit of light to the right hand side of the face, and to the back of the wall as well. So it kind of adds that kind of directional light. So it adds a bit more depth to the image.
Yeah, it's because she was slightly underexposed in this picture, wasn't she, James?
Yes, she was.
Yeah. So that's worked really quite nicely, just introducing that little bit of light just to make the face a little bit brighter.
Well, that's what I thought. Just do it on the face rather than the whole
Yes.
body, you know.
Yeah. So definite improvement, and something that you could use compared with the underexposed version. So much better there. Well done. Thank you, Emma. Next up we have Margie. Lindsay, would you care to critique this one, please?
Yeah, this works quite well, doesn't it? It's a good subject to use. You can see exactly where she's got the light shining through the windows. It makes a more interesting image. It's a more effective image and draws your eyes straight to the windows, that you would tend to sort of skip over on the original image.
Yeah, it's certainly given it a little bit more presence and, as you say, more interesting. So yeah, well done, Margie. Margie, are you there yet? Margie joined us? Not yet. Okay. Let's jump back into the PowerPoint. Okay, thank you, Lindsay. And this one's Graham. So back to Heather. Would you care to critique this one, please?
Yeah, it's nice sort of touch lighting up the faces of the couple. Yeah, I presume it was sort of radial filter just over both of their faces, the centre of their faces, and yeah, I think it's definitely on. There's a bit. The whole picture's a little bit lighter, I think. A bit lighter in the background as well, but just behind them, which is nice. So yeah, it's definitely an improvement. I'm sure they'd be very happy with that.
Yeah, great work here, Graham. Did you actually minimise the picture and pull the radial filter outside of the image, or did you pull it further into where they are?
To be quite honest, I can't remember what I did actually. Oh dear. That will teach me to do it last Tuesday night. I think I just applied it across the face, but trying to think. I think I must have done something to the background as well, as Heather points out, but I can't recall what I did now.
It could have been just like one big filter, because we can see, like, you know, this sort of area is all brighter and lighter. You know, or maybe you put in one and then put in another one on top of it just to do the faces.
I think I might have done two, you know.
Yeah.
Now I can't recall.
But
Yeah.
so much better, and again, it's worked incredibly well.
Thank you.
Great work there. So Emma, you've used the provided files. Any issues with applying the filter?
No, nothing. Just followed the instructions. I would have liked to have done it on my own first, but I just didn't have time to find one. So.
Okay. You know, you can also source images online, you know, if time is short. So, you know, just so that you've got like additional practice really using something a little bit different. There's always that option to use like Pixabay, free images, any of those sites. That's perfectly all right. But you've applied it well, nice and subtle, but works really well. A couple on the left, and then just enough to brighten up the couple on the right. Well done.
Thanks.
Okay, let's have a look at radial gradients. So Emma, this is, again, I realise you were sort of you were short of time, so we can see you've used the provided file and effectively worked on the inside and the outside of the image just to create something a little bit more compelling. Any issues with the technique?
No, I think I got it stuck at one point because I hadn't inverted the filter, but after I worked out what I was doing wrong, it was fine.
Yeah, so it's a good thing to remember that, you know, not only can you work on the inside of the filter, but working on the outside can be really good and really creative, and you can just end up with something that's just that little bit more interesting than perhaps you started out with. So nicely done, the room's well darkened and the light's nice and bright. That's really good. Next up we have Heather. James, could you critique, please?
Yes, it's certainly made a good difference on the right-hand photograph. It's brought out the trees nicely, and especially the red. It's popping a lot better and lightened the sky up.
Yeah, it's worked really well, hasn't it? The sort of colouring, as you say, on the reds is really striking. Thank you, James. Anything to say, Heather?
I just used it dotted around really, mainly to pop out the reds, but I think I might have darkened the sky a little bit just to make it a little bit more dramatic, and brought out I think a bit of radial filter in the pond as well, just to make it a little bit more obvious. But yeah, I sort of dotted it around a bit.
It's worked well in the pond, hasn't it? That's really good, yeah. So you were using several radial filters, smaller ones, just in different parts of the image?
Yeah. Some darker and some lighter. Yes.
And so, yeah, it's just like another way of using the filter to selectively dodge and burn almost, because you're using it just in parts of the image where you want the viewer's eye to go to, where we've got this lovely colour contrast between the reds and the greens, and also in the water. But if there are areas where you don't really want to be so standing out so much, then you can just use that to darken things down. So again, an effective way of dodging and burning with the filter. Well done, like that.
Thank you.
Next up we have James. Jonathan, could you critique, please?
I assume that the one that's been applied to is on the left.
I just need to clarify with James, because I wasn't sure if he started out with a brighter image and then darkened it down.
It was the one on the left was the brighter one. I darkened it down and put the radio on the two figures.
Right.
Brighten those up.
Okay.
Yeah, looking at it, you can see that, because the building behind where it's been applied is obviously different. It works. It's a nicer photograph than the other one. There's no doubt about that. It's just the subject matter. It's hard to see that it's made a difference on the faces of the statues. It's been very much applied sort of as a circular filter in one area. Definitely improved the photograph, but I wonder if it could have been stretched more into an oval to sort of highlight the both figures more, particularly the head of the top figure.
Yes, I agree with you there, Jonathan. Yes, because maybe, as you say, elongated it a bit more.
Well, don't forget, you can also use the filter in conjunction with, say, the adjustment brush. And so you could always lighten and brighten selectively. So in quite a subtle way, because you wouldn't really want to bring in too much light, but you could have just used that brush perhaps to just brighten up parts of the faces, as Jonathan suggested, just so we can see detail.
You could just use the brush inside the filter for, like, just as you say, like just for the face.
So yes, so you do the work with the filter, and then once you're happy with that, that's done. And then you see the little pin. If you want to go back, you can click on that and re-edit it again. But instead of re-editing the filter, you would just, as I say, you do that bit, you click done, then you press K and get the adjustment brush, and then maybe just, quarter of a stop, quite a small amount. Then with a small brush, you could just go around and lighten the faces.
Right. Yes. No. Right.
It's a good point of learning, actually, that image has come up, because that's just like another technique that can be explored using the adjustment brush together with the filter.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
Well done.
Jane, I'm going to go just now. If that's
okay, Lindsay. Okay.
I'll see you next week. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Bye for now. Margie, have you joined us?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
You're there now. Excellent. So we've lost Lindsay, but Margie's joined us. Right. Okay. Graham, could you critique Margie's picture, please?
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of bringing the mushroom. I'm assuming the filter's being applied across the mushroom, but it's sort of bringing it out from the tree. Yeah. I quite like it. It's a bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything to say, Margie?
Yes, I did the radial filter twice on. I can't believe I didn't put the before. But I did the radial filter twice on the mushroom, and then I used, is it called the linear one, the long one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I applied that to the tree trunk and did various amounts of exposure, so it was like going down gradually.
Okay,
but
so yeah.
It was good. I enjoyed doing it. I really did.
It's really popped, hasn't it? Obviously, we don't know what the original was like, but the mushroom stands out really well. And
well, prior to that, the editing, it didn't change. So I'll look for the before one and I will post it.
Oh, okay. But the background doesn't detract. It complements the mushroom, the texture and everything else. So, yeah, it's just like a little glade almost, and you've got this sort of specular highlight appearing on the mushroom. So that's,
Yes.
just sort of like a magical way you can use the filter to bring out fine detail. So very well done.
Thank you.
Next up we have Jonathan. Margie, could you critique, please?
Yeah, there's a huge difference between the two photographs. The filters have really brought out the children's faces, the wood of the chair, the clothes on the children. It's just a good job all around.
Much improved.
Yeah. I do have to say that I think the left picture of the baby's face looks more in focus than the one with the radial filter on. So I don't know if it's like destroyed it all.
Yeah. Sorry, Jonathan, go ahead.
No, I haven't said anything. The second one is cropped in. Maybe I didn't sharpen it.
Yeah, it looks a little bit fuzzy compared to the first.
Yeah, it's not cropped that much, no, compared to the first there. So I don't know why I couldn't see them in focus.
Could be my eyesight.
I actually was going to leave more in, but their shoes, her granddaughter's shoes were blown because the light was coming in very strong into the sort of summer house thing. So that's partly why her shoes were popped off.
Okay. Suggestions for like an alternative interpretation would have been if you could have, say, got the right-hand side straighter and cropped in on this chair to get rid of the distracting element that's shining through white. So it was more of a vertical portrait composition rather than a landscape one. And just to try and straighten those sides up so that this is more or less a barrier that stops the viewer's eye leaving the picture space and concentrates the eye more on the subject. So that would be, an alternative way to process.
Yeah, I tried doing that, but I had a problem with the top of the chair. As a strong horizontal, whenever I tried to straighten the side one, I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it to work.
Oh, okay, yeah. It can sometimes be an issue that way. The horizontal's perfect, and then you've got this sort of bit that's a little bit skew with on the right hand side. So yeah, some images, it's just really difficult unless you start pulling pixels around and distort it, and then you've got to ask yourself, is it worth spending so much time? But all in all, the filter has made a significant difference there.
I tried sort of distorting it that you suggested, but her legs then went.
Yeah, sometimes it causes more issues than it solves. I mean, the other option would have been to darken down this sort of white picture or whatever that is on the back wall.
I could have cloned that out.
Yeah, or cloned it, yeah. Okay. It's just always, anything like that is, it does keep pulling your eye away from the subject. But you've captured good detail behind the window as well. Well done. Next up we have Graham. Emma, could you critique, please?
Yes. Sorry, it's just coming in and out of focus. So I'm assuming the one on the right is the second.
Yes.
Is the edited version. Okay, so this has got a sort of similar effect as the one that we did in class, or the image that was given to us. So it's really kind of focused on the light and given off that kind of warmth, or like a glow of light, and darkened the rest of the background to kind of draw your eye towards the light. I think it gives the photo more makes it more interesting to look at, I think, rather than the first one.
Yeah, I agree. Because the first one looks more or less just like something that you would take with your phone or you would just snap anyway. But the one on the right is more of a photograph. So thank you for that, Emma. Anything to say, Graham?
No, I looked around for a few photographs just to find one which sort of fitted what I was looking for, which, as Emma sort of points out, which was similar to the exercise we did, and then sort of darkened down the back with one filter, and then obviously lightened up the actual light bulb itself. But yeah, I was quite pleased with the effect.
Yeah, I think you've done a great job with that. So certainly 10 times more interesting, and it just has a little bit of atmosphere now that we've got light and dark, and the light is just that little bit brighter. So that image works particularly well. So great work there, Graham.
Thank you.
Right, okay, so that is the end of the slideshow. Have I shown everything that you've all uploaded, or is there anything that's missing? It's all there? Okay. So we'll just quickly jump into the classwork tab. As I mentioned at the very start, we do have to do a portfolio of work. Now this, it's just basically a PowerPoint. Let's see if we can get it downloaded quickly. So it's a basic PowerPoint. There's not too much to do, but the suggestion would certainly be to start adding content to it, just so you don't have too much to do at the end of the course. That's assuming you're doing the full course. It doesn't apply if you're finishing today, but for those people that are doing the full course. So I'll just go through what we've got to do. So the first slide, it's just opened in Google Slides. We'll have our name. Second slide, a screenshot of images ready for import. So that's just a basic screenshot. Am I right in thinking everybody's comfortable with taking screenshots now? Yes? Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Basic screenshot of your images ready for import. Screenshot of a collection. And a little note at the bottom, please indicate that this is a target collection. How can we do that?
You have a little tick on it.
It's like a little asterisk. Yeah. So that's how we know that that's the target collection. So when you're importing, just make sure that you set that import as the new collection rather as a target collection that you're working on. A screenshot of a Lightroom filter, so anything from last week's work. Apply basic edits in the develop module, so that's simply before and after, and it can be work that we've already done. You don't have to set about doing new projects for this unless you want to, but it's absolutely fine to draw on work we've already done, and it's fine to draw on work where I've given you provided files to do the tasks. Screenshot of layered image in Photoshop. Any Photoshop project where you've got the layers panel showing in that screenshot. So these are all just basic learning outcomes that we have to achieve for this course, and taking screenshots is, just by far the best way of showing the evidence. Before and after, using lighting effects with the radial or the graduated filter. Before and after, images enhanced with the adjustment brush, image with the adjustment brush. So just a selective adjustment. So that could be something like James's statue, where you're simply brightening the face just to bring in some detail. Screenshot of the film strip showing virtual copies. So you remember when we were doing our snapshots and virtual copies. How can we tell if an image is a virtual copy?
The picture's got one of the corners upturned.
Yeah, perfect. So that's a good reminder. You just look for that little upturned corner, you know there's a virtual copy. Snapshots panel showing different versions of an image file, so that was another option. We just go to the left hand side where we've got the snapshots and then just take a screenshot where we've got the different versions. Please provide the following screenshots. Export an image as a smart object in Lightroom, open in Photoshop and edit in ACR. So it's just basically the 3 screenshots of each of those stages. So that's to show integration with Photoshop and Adobe Camera Raw and Lightroom. So that again is like a major outcome for the course, because that's really what it's all about, how you can integrate all of those apps. So that is what you would put in for that one. Is that okay? Has anybody got any questions?
That's fine.
It's fine? Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, if you do think of anything, if you know you're not really sure about anything there, then just flag it up. Let me just check, was there anything else that I had to mention here? I'll just go back. So we've got that to do, but we don't actually have to have that in until 30th of November, okay? And that is like the last but one session of the course. So plenty of time to do that, but I would suggest that, you just start adding content so you don't have to do too much at the end. The ILJ, so we have a little bit to do on that, and I just need to check that we've got the work in progress, so actually started, and so if we can have that in, just the start of it, not the whole thing completed by the 17th of October. So that it's in Microsoft Word format, because I know some people did find they were getting in a bit of a knot with this last time around when it was in the format of the Google site. So you can open this in Word, you can edit it in Google Docs, whichever you prefer. And so again, we've all seen this before, pretty straightforward what it's asking for. So just go through all of these things because everybody's done it before. 5 things you can do relevant to the course, and then once I get this back I can put in my comments. Confidence in doing things: 1, not confident; 4, very confident. And then we just work our way through it, and then we need to have the specific course target. Okay, so that's something that you personally want to get out of the course. Now, the way that we use language in order to put the target in place would be something like, I don't know, can anybody think of a target first of all? Just say one thing you would like to get out of the course.
Build your own.
Sorry.
Go on. No, you're gone, Maggie.
I was going to see for myself confidence to use nearly all of the Lightroom elements to edit.
Okay.
To improve photographs.
So that, sorry, were you going to say something, Jonathan?
You were muted, Jonathan.
Oh, sorry. I said take and edit photographs more professionally and learn how to use Lightroom correctly.
Okay, so what we're looking for is really something that's measurable, and both of those targets are measurable. Graham, did you have a target off the top of your head?
I was thinking just around increasing your knowledge on the integration between Lightroom and Photoshop. So
these are all brilliant targets, and targets that would work very well, and the language is appropriate. Increasing knowledge, that's good, they would like that. They also like develop knowledge of. And so it's just really getting it phrased in, the right way, if you like. So if you have a target in mind, and it could be, anything along the lines of what we've discussed so far, but you don't really know how to put it into the right language, you can always just pop it in an email to me, and then we can discuss it, and then I can help you actually get it into the right language. But from what's been said before, those 3 targets are perfectly valid. They're measurable, so we can see by the end of the course, in Graham's case, has he actually improved his understanding of integration using all of the apps or not? And so if you can say yes, because I can do that, I can take an image from Lightroom, open in Photoshop, and then open it back in Lightroom as a TIFF file. All of these things, are just like the evidence for that. Okay, so that's really good. Anybody anything to say about that, or is that okay?
Jane, I've already submitted mine. I thought it had to be in this week.
Oh, you've submitted your ILJ?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Well, you get a gold star. Excellent work. And a little emoji with like the angel with the halo. So excellent work.
If you need a change, let me know.
So well done. So all of this, again, pretty straightforward stuff. Okay, excellent. Right, so now we shall move on, because we've looked at that, we know what we've got to do, not too onerous a task. So we're going to come on to the question of removing a chain link fence in our project work. Okay, and so as I mentioned earlier, this is often something that you see in the zoo, safari park, animal park, and you think, oh, that would be such a nice photo if it wasn't for the fence. Okay, so it's not too onerous a task to actually use Photoshop techniques in order to get rid of the fence. All right, so to start with, we need to do a little bit of prep to get ready to do this if you haven't already got this tool. So the tool that we need is called the Quick Mask tool, and you can see I'm pointing to it at the moment. So if you look at the toolbox, if you haven't got that, and most people will not, you need to go to Edit, the Edit menu in Photoshop, down to Toolbar, and then when Toolbar comes up, we're looking for the Quick Mask tool. Okay, so we just click on that, and then it will be added to your toolbar. So that's the first thing to do to prep for the project. Okay, so before I do anything else, I'll just pause while everybody does that bit, unless you've got it already.
Did you say it was under Edit, Julian, did you?
Yeah. So it's just in your Edit menu, and then you just scroll down Toolbar to normally near the bottom. Is it not in your one?
No, I've got keyboard shortcuts and menus.
Right, so we're going to have to try another way of doing this. You may find that you've got like Quick Mask underneath the foreground and background colours. Is there a little icon on the bottom of the toolbox that looks like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there is. It's, Edit in Quick Mask mode.
Okay, so that's basically what we are going to do, but we are painting on the mask. Now, for what you're going to do, you might find, because basically the mask's going to be turned into a selection. So you might find that it's easier to do a selection of the bars, which is what we are going to do, and then you can fill it with content aware. Right. So it's just going to be, I'll have a little practice as well once everybody gets started with this, and then we'll see the best way to get round it. My feeling's going to be it'll be just like doing a selection and then filling it.
Got you. Yeah, yeah.
Right, how are we doing? Have we all got the tool or not?
Yes,
Sorry.
yes,
I
now,
can't
yes.
see the tool.
Right, we've got it.
And I mean, I've got the, you know, the one, the subscription
Yes.
stuff. So I would expect it should be there, but I can't see it.
Right, so you've gone to the edit menu toolbar, and then at the very bottom, I don't know if you can see my screen, it's like the third icon along, and it's like a little rectangle.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was expecting to see it in the text. So
Okay.
Yeah, okay, got it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so we just click that, and then it should appear at the bottom of the toolbox. Once we've got it there, we just double click on it to prep the tool, okay? And this brings up the quick mask options. And so it's probably, it could be on masked areas for the colour indicates, but we'll change that to selected areas instead, if masked areas are selected. And then the colour red is good, and opacity at 50%. So we just do that, and that's just like the basic prep for the tool. Right, has everybody done that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, that's that bit done. Then you'll notice when the tool is active, the quick mask, the layer goes red. Okay, that just indicates that, you know, quick mask is in operation. Then we press Command J or Control J to duplicate the background layer. Now, sometimes it's possible to not give yourself quite so much work, because you're going to think, oh, it's a bit of a task this. So sometimes an image like this, you can think, oh, well, I'll probably crop it later anyway, rather than have to do all of the chain link fence. So that's something that you can bear in mind. So next thing we've got to think of is selecting our brush tool. So the brush tool is selected. I press D on my keyboard to make sure I've got default colours. So for this, when you're working in quick mask, you have to paint in black, even though when we paint on the bars, it's going to come out red because we're painting in a mask. You have to make sure it's got to be black, grey, and any other colour, purple will not do. It has to be black. We need to make sure the mode's normal, opacity 100%, flow needs to be 100%. So those are all of the elements, and then brush size and softness. So just make sure that you've got a reasonable size of brush, and then you probably want the hardness somewhere around about 50%. Okay, so that's quite good. So not too hard, not too soft. So we've got all of those things done, and then if we just zoom in a little bit, then we can take a look at the bars. And so you want your brush using your right square bracket to make it slightly bigger, just to be slightly larger than the actual bar that we're painting with. Okay, just show that that's working. Right, and then we just draw in a line. So basically we're creating a mask which is going to form a selection, right? Now you can make it easier. So you can click to start, go to the end of a bar, hold your shift key and draw a straight line. Okay, so for the purposes of this, what we can do is maybe just go around the dog's face rather than doing everything, and then you get an idea of how the technique can work. Okay, so if you say have a nice picture of an animal that you've taken with this type of fence, if possible, I mean, you can work around eyes. If you've got something like this, it tends to be a little bit easier where you don't have to say do a separate clone to flip an eye or try and rebuild an eye. So if you've got the eyes intact, it can be quite a bit easier. But, you know, it's not impossible to do it the other way. So we'll all just do a little bit of work on the mesh in order to remove some of it just around the dog's face. It's not as bad. I mean, at first you think, oh, it's going to take ages, but you do get into a little routine doing this, and so it's not really that bad once you get going and just start creating the straight lines. Has anybody done anything like this before, removing a fence? No?
Jane, for some reason I lost my mask. It was on the background, and then I did the copy layer, it disappeared.
Right, so that happened to mine as well when I duplicated it. So if you go back to the tool, switch it off and switch it on again, then you should be able to paint in red again.
Okay, thanks.
Just see if that works, because that worked for me.
Yes, that's worked. Thanks, Jane.
Okay. Is this working okay for everybody? And Graham, what are you using for a selection?
I've just clicked on that tool and I'm using just a normal brush, and I'm just drawing around a bit like what you're doing. It's highlighted in red, so I'm not quite sure what I'll do after that, like, but I'm doing that at the moment.
So you're in quick mask mode, Graham?
Yeah.
So when you come out of it, hopefully you'll have a selection.
Right, okay.
I would maybe test it though before you put in a lot of work, in case it doesn't actually give you a selection, just to make sure.
Sure.
Yeah, just...
Yes, it does.
Oh,
it does.
Hooray! Excellent.
Sorry, Jane.
Yes?
There doesn't really happen with my link fence. My layers on the panel's red. It's on black and 50%, but it's not putting the mask on for some reason.
Right, so when I say 50%, your brush is on 50% hardness?
Yes.
Yes, and then across the top you can see opacity is 100%, flows 100%, smoothing's 100%.
Yes,
Yeah,
they're
all of that. And then have you got, is the mask tool switched on with like a little grey border around it?
Yes.
Right, and the layer is pink, pinky red.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so all of those things are done. Now when you click in the image, what happens? You're not getting a red line.
No, nothing. Although in mode it's lighten, as it should be
normal.
normal. Right?
Yeah, that's really important. Mode has to be normal.
That's it. That's
Fabulous. You diagnosed the problem yourself.
Thank you.
Right. How are we doing? Have we sort of been around the dog's face, or we've got a bit more to do?
Jim, could you just remind me, please, what you do if you lose your layers? If you use the layers panel?
Yeah. So if you press F7, that'll bring it back. Or if you go window menu, and down to layers.
Okay,
and that'll bring it back.
Thanks.
How are we doing now? We need a few more minutes. Just let me know when you're ready, okay? There's no rush. Just it's better to take a little bit of time and get each of the bars covered, because if you kind of get a bit sort of slapdash with it, then the content away doesn't fill as well. Oh, I meant to mention for next week, if everybody could take a macro shot, please, and just upload it to Classroom, and we're going to just look at how we can process macro or close-up. So if you haven't got a macro lens, don't worry, you could just take a close-up shot with a kit lens, and then we'll look at processing that shot within the class. Okay. there is an upload as well on Google Classroom, just to remind you. Has anybody got any images that they could use this technique on?
Yes, I do, Jean.
Oh, good.
I assume you can use it on power lines as well, etc.
Yeah, so we have done something very similar with power lines before.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
Yeah.
But you could use this technique with power lines?
Yeah, sure. So remember, you don't have to do like the whole thing. If we just kind of go around the dog and get those bits in around its face. If you make a mistake, then you can always just either Command Z and undo, or you can paint with white to paint over the mistake. Because it's a mask, you can do that.
Jean, when I've like duplicated the layer, I've lost all the masking I've just done.
That's because you meant to duplicate the layer before you start.
Oh, God, right.
Well, can you just go to your history and step back and just work on the background layer if you've done all of that masking. Right. We'll just see if we can do it that way.
Right.
I haven't done the whole photograph, but it seems to work very well.
Yeah, so it's really just, it will do a decent job. So as soon as you've got the masking in place, all you need to do is click on your mask button, and obviously that's going to turn the mask straight into a selection. And then if we press Shift and Backspace, we can choose how we're going to fill that selection. So we can use Content Aware Fill, colour adaptation should be ticked, and the blending mode is normal. And then we'll just click OK and just leave it to work its magic. Now, it will do a fairly good job, but it's not perfect. So we do need to do a little bit of extra work to tidy up the image, because obviously there's grasses and other artifacts that are in the way that we just need to work on. So I'm just waiting for that fill to go through and then just deselect. And we can see that we have got a little bit more tidying up to do, but yeah, it's worked pretty well. I haven't, as you can see, I haven't done all of it, so there's still some fencing left to go through. So the basic tools that we're going to use in order to do the tidying up have all got advantages and disadvantages. Right, so I'll ask Margie, what can you tell me about the spot healing brush? Why would that be good for this task?
It's good at removing like the smaller, say, like imperfections in the photograph without leaving too much damage to it.
Yeah, so it's quick as well. So the spot healing, yeah, that's usually the go-to tool for everything, just because it's so quick. So you can see the shortcut for that tool group is J. If we hit J, then we're going to, if the spot healing brush is on top, then we can use that straight away. So the brush size needs to be just slightly larger than what you're trying to remove, and sometimes it works better if you just do a small bit. So just paint with it, it goes dark, and then we can see that it's removed that piece of grass. Okay, so that is like the go-to tool to remove lots of things, but it's not always the best tool. So if we go to the clone stamp tool, we'll have a look at that. Heather, what can you tell me about the clone stamp tool? Are you there, Heather? Or are you muted?
I was babbling anyway. It's basically where you just want to replace something with something that's already in the image. So
yeah.
you're just copying it across.
Yeah, so it's basically a pixel by pixel copy. And it's not doing anything sophisticated like trying to blend in what you've just cloned. It's just pixel by pixel copy. And so sometimes though it can be quite a useful tool if you're not getting the results you expect with the other tools. So the clone tool, you remember, you need to select the source point by holding down the Alt or the Option key. You get the little crosshair and you click, and then you just paint over the imperfection, and we keep an eye on the cross because the cross shows us where the actual cloned area is coming from to replace the imperfection. So it can be very quick and easy, and don't forget we can also do a straight line with the tool, so we can just move around and fix things quite quickly. So another tool which is often overlooked, and that is the healing brush. Jonathan, can you tell me anything about that tool?
No, I know how to use the spot healing tool, but the healing brush, it must be something similar. So I'm not sure.
Okay, so the spot healing brush is quite a sophisticated tool because it will try to actually blend in the surrounding pixels, and it sort of can result in a much smoother blending effect, and it can look more natural. So with that one, unlike spot healing, you have to select your source point. So you simply go to the pixel, the group of pixels that you want to use as your source point, and then it's the same thing, the Option key and click to select that source point, and then you place it over the area you wish to clone, and then hold the Shift key in order to make that repair. Okay, so often when we're doing this kind of work, it's like a combination of all of the tools to get the best result possible. Sometimes you can do quite a large bit if you see doing like a straight line. So this bit, for example, I would give it a go and see if I can do a large bit in one go. And that's just removing the grasses. And so again, holding the shift key down and doing the straight line, and that's worked quite well. You can always, if you get sort of a fairly good copy, you can always go over again with sort of the spot healing brush if you need to, or sometimes just repairing what you've done if you need to do like a little bit of repair work. I mean, this isn't a particularly good photo to start with. We can see the highlights are blown, but it is a good photo to practice the technique. Okay, so I'll just let you have a look now at using those tools just to see how you can get rid of the grasses, etc., around the dog's face.
Jane, you can also use the lasso tool as well and do edit and fill.
Yes.
And content away. Yeah.
You can, yeah, that's another good one. We can use the lasso tool. You can use the patch tool as well. So the patch tool is another one which is sometimes overlooked, but you can use the tool on content aware, and then again a similar thing. You just draw over the imperfection, and then you can just drag to an area that you like the look of, just to fix that imperfection. So the patch tool can be used for quite large areas as well. So we'll just spend a little bit of time seeing if we can improve on that dog image.
Jane, what's the difference between the clone stamp tool and the spot healing brush?
So
we're picking your source of the pixels.
Yes.
Both of them.
Are you meaning the healing brush?
Healing brush.
Yeah. So the healing brush was developed later. It came a long time after the clone stamp tool. So the clone stamp tool is just basically a pixel by pixel copy. It's just copying from the source point. There's nothing else happening. Whereas when we're using the healing brush, yes, we sample the source point, but the actual brush does attempt to blend in the surrounding area, to give you a much better effect, and quite often it does look much more natural than the clone stamp.
Thank you.
Jane?
Yes.
Mine, I don't know why, I don't know what I've done, but mine didn't seem to work when I went to take out one of the to get it to work, the quick mask. It just came up with just a bit of a blurry picture.
Okay, so it could be that you didn't have the bars covered enough. You know, if you're not drawing straight lines and say the lines are a bit wonky, it sometimes doesn't give you as good a result. The first time I did one of these, I was a little bit, in a bit too much of a rush and went really fast. And yeah, I did do some lines, but they weren't really that good. And so I was a bit disappointed with the result. But when I did it the second time and slowed down and made sure each of the bars was actually properly covered, I got a much better result.
Yeah, maybe I was a little bit slapdash, but it's just a mess that's come out at the other end. I'll try it again.
Yeah, I would try it again, but don't do like a whole lot, because you can sort of sicken yourself. If you just say do a little bit around the dog, and then do the selection with the quick mask, and then turn the mask off, and so you get the selection. Then it's just edit content away fill. Just make sure you've got the right settings for edit content away fill, because that's important that when you just press, so you've got a selection. I'll just quickly do a selection, and then if I press my shift and backspace to bring up content away fill, just make sure it's content away, color adaptation is ticked, blending mode is normal, opacity is 100%, but you haven't ticked preserve transparency.
Yeah, I did that. I definitely did that.
You did
all the to do it again, but maybe, like you say, it was the selection. I'm not sure.
It probably was, just because I know from experience I didn't do such a good job first time round. I was going too fast, and I just sort of didn't have straight lines really around the bars. And if your brush is too big as well, that can affect it. So the brush just needs to be slightly bigger than the size of the bars.
Okay.
Okay, so I would suggest have it
worse.
Well, yeah, but you know it's disappointing, because if you've taken a while over it, just do a little bit and then let me know how you get on.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
How's
I would say, Jane, I had something similar where it was just you couldn't even see the dog when I first did it, but it was because, for me, it was because it inverted my selection, and then when I switched the selection around the other way and did it did a lot better then.
Oh, good. That's good. Because your technique's slightly different, because you're painting with a selection.
Yeah.
But so was it quite good after you did that?
Better, but I don't have that colour adaptation on the content aware, so I think that's probably having an effect. So I can still see a little bit of a mesh, and I'm having to use a healing brush a lot more to clean it up.
To clean it up, yeah. So it's something that perhaps you can use, but obviously you'd be wanting to crop in the image quite tight, so you don't have too much of it to do.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I think everybody probably wants to crop in quite tight, and unless it's, say, a beautiful photo of a snow leopard and you really want to, show the animal off to perfection. So it's a technique that, we can use, and certainly use it, because quite often you don't have the proper lens hood, the sort of rubber hood to push right in to actually get the lens through one of those, the bars. And so if you haven't got that and you've just taken the photo anyway, then it can be used. Okay, we'll just have a little look at Classroom, what I'm going to leave you with tonight. Right. So, just scroll down to week 4. So I mentioned the macro shot, if you can take one of those, and then we'll process that next week. removing a chain link fence, so your version, that's only if you feel as if it's something that you're going to use. Like Margie said, she's got pictures of that type of fence, and so that is something that's quite useful. So I'm not going to labour the point, not if it's something that you're likely to use, but you know the technique anyway. I'm leaving you with another selection of hair project and moving somebody into a different background. This technique, range masks in Lightroom. Now, there's a little bit more to this, but you've got a full handout, and I've put in file uploads. So if you get a bit stuck with that, just let me know and I can record a video on range masks or cover it next week. So just let me know if that isn't 100% clear. I mean, we have done a little bit of work with range masking, but it does get a little bit complicated when you get into it. So if you need further help on that, don't hesitate. Okay, so we've got the depth range mask. There's three basically: depth range mask, the color range mask, and the luminance range mask. So we've used luminance and color before, but not depth. So the depth range mask, that is specific to cameras with more than one lens that record depth information. So if you've got a mobile phone that has more than one lens, you'll be able to use it on something like portrait mode, where you can blur the background and then that information is recorded and the depth mask can be used. So that's all to do with shape and space, if you like. But again, if you get stuck with that, just let me know and we can either put it on to next week or record a video. And then I've popped this in, cutting out hair revision project, because I think, Jonathan, it was when you had a photo with one of your granddaughters last week and had issues with selecting the hair.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, so that's just there to take a look at, okay? But happy to go over that if needs be. So, few things for you to think about before next week, and especially if you wish to continue. So, if you're only doing the 4 weeks, then you don't have to do anything about the ILP or indeed the first part of the actual PowerPoint. But if you're doing the full course, then obviously we need to do those things as well. Has anybody got any questions? No?
Yes.
Yes?
One quick question. In Photoshop, can you have two photographs on display, like with the dog? I'd like to have the original side to compare to.
Yeah, certainly.
I've got a problem with the shadow above his nose.
Yeah, so that's a good point, Jonathan, because yeah, if you go to window, arrange, and then if you've actually cropped them, so you could do that. You could just have them vertical, or you might want them horizontal, just with them being, this sort of shape. I would suggest it might well be easier just to, crop, and then you can work with them both in the other orientation. I mean, you can always just move them around if you didn't want to crop, you can just do it that way.
Right.
Yeah. Maggie, what was your question?
How many uploads do I have to do this week?
Right. Okay, so some of them are, there is optional. So I'd like your macro one, so that's one. Removing the chain link fence. You said that you had photos like that, so that's optional, but you can upload it if you get the chance to have a go. Okay. Selecting hair, so that's a different project for more practice, so that's 3. Then the range masks in Lightroom, so that's another one. 4. Color range 5. Luminance is 6. Okay. So there's potentially 6 uploads, but as I say, if the range masking is causing issues, then we'll just leave that for now and we can look at it next week.
Right, thank you.
Okay, so I wish everybody a lovely evening. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you all next week, if not before.
Thank you, Jean.
Thanks, Jane.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.